Imagine a ship, perfectly intact, sailing silently across the ocean, but with not a single soul on board. No distress signals, no signs of struggle, just an eerie, inexplicable void. Today, we're diving deep into the most baffling maritime mystery of all time, the Mary Celeste, a ghost ship that continues to haunt our imagination nearly 150 years later. Our story begins in the autumn of 1872. The Mary Celeste, a sturdy brigantine, set sail from New York, bound for Genoa, Italy. On board was Captain Benjamin Briggs, his wife Sarah, their 2-year-old daughter Sophia, and a crew of 7 experienced sailors. Their cargo? 701 barrels of industrial alcohol, a valuable commodity. Everything seemed perfectly normal. The crew was competent, the captain was highly respected, and the ship was in excellent condition. But somewhere in the vast expanse of the Atlantic, this ordinary voyage would turn into an enduring legend. Fast forward about a month to December 4th, 1872. The crew of another ship, the Dei Gratia, spotted a vessel adrift in the choppy waters between the Azores and Portugal. As they drew closer, they realized it was the Mary Celeste. They hailed it repeatedly, but received no answer. The ship was sailing erratically, its sails slightly damaged, but otherwise it seemed seaworthy. Something was deeply wrong. The Dei Gratia's first mate, Oliver DeVoe, led a small party to board the mysterious ship. What they found was a scene frozen in time and utterly bewildering. The ship was deserted. Not a single person, living or dead, was on board. The crew's belongings were still in their quarters, neatly stowed. Valuables, including money and jewelry, were untouched, ruling out piracy. In the ship's galley there was ample food and fresh water, enough for 6 months. There were no signs of a fire or a violent struggle. The ship's logbook was found in the mate's cabin. Its last entry, dated November 25th, 9 days before the ship was found, recorded the Mary Celeste's position near the Azores. It mentioned no unusual events, no distress, nothing out of the ordinary. The final entry on the ship's slate simply noted they had reached the island of St. Mary's in the Azores that morning. But there were some peculiar details. The ship's only lifeboat was missing. One of the ship's 2 pumps had been disassembled. And while the ship was wet, with over 3 feet of water in the hold, it was far from sinking. It was still very much sailable. The cargo of industrial alcohol was almost entirely intact, except for 9 barrels which were found empty. The ship's navigational instruments, with the exception of the chronometer and sextant, were also gone. It was as if Captain Briggs, his family, and his crew had vanished into thin air. They had clearly left the ship in a hurry, taking the lifeboat and essential navigation tools. But why? What could have compelled 10 people to abandon a perfectly sound vessel in the middle of the unforgiving Atlantic Ocean? This is the question that has puzzled historians, sailors, and mystery lovers for generations. Let's explore some of the theories that have emerged over the years, from the plausible to the outright bizarre. One of the most popular early theories was, of course, foul play. Piracy was an immediate suspect, but it was quickly dismissed. Pirates would have ransacked the ship and stolen the valuable cargo and personal effects. None of that happened. What about a mutiny? It's possible, but highly unlikely. Captain Briggs had a reputation for being a fair and capable commander, and the crew was hand-picked and experienced. There's no evidence to suggest any kind of conflict on board. Besides, if the crew had mutinied, why would they abandon the ship and their pay? It just doesn't add up. Then there's the theory of a natural disaster. Perhaps a rogue wave or a sudden violent squall struck the ship, washing everyone overboard. While possible, this wouldn't explain why the lifeboat was missing or why the captain would have taken his navigational instruments. Also, a storm severe enough to sweep 10 people off the deck would have likely caused far more damage to the ship itself. Another intriguing idea revolves around the cargo, those barrels of industrial alcohol. This leads to the exploding cargo theory. The 9 empty barrels were made of red oak, which is more porous than the white oak used for the others. It's possible that alcohol vapors leaked from these barrels and built up in the hold. Fearing an imminent explosion, perhaps after hearing a rumbling sound or seeing a vapor cloud, Captain Briggs might have ordered everyone into the lifeboat as a temporary precaution. Picture this: They lower the lifeboat, maybe tying it to the main ship with a long rope, planning to wait at a safe distance until the danger passed. But a sudden gust of wind could have snapped the rope, or the ship could have sailed away faster than they could row, leaving them stranded in the open ocean. This theory explains the missing lifeboat and the hurried but not panicked departure. It's one of the most credible explanations we have, supported by the disassembled pump, which they might have been trying to use to check the hold. Of course, no great mystery is complete without some more imaginative theories. People have suggested everything from a giant squid attack to an encounter with a UFO. While these ideas make for fantastic stories, there's zero evidence to support them. Another theory proposed a seaquake, a submarine earthquake, which could have churned up the water and damaged the hull, frightening the crew into abandoning ship. The water in the hold could be explained by this, but again, it's purely speculative. What about food poisoning? Some have suggested that ergot, a fungus that can grow on rye bread, could have caused hallucinations and madness, leading the crew to jump overboard. But the ship's provisions were found to be in good order, and it doesn't explain why they would have systematically taken the lifeboat and navigational tools. The fate of the 10 souls from the Mary Celeste remains unknown. No bodies were ever recovered. No trace of the lifeboat was ever found. They simply disappeared, leaving behind a perfectly good ship and a mystery that has endured for a century and a half. The Mary Celeste itself was eventually sailed to Gibraltar by the crew of the Dei Gratia, who claimed a salvage award. But the ship seemed cursed. It changed hands 17 times over the next 13 years, bringing misfortune to many of its owners. Its final captain deliberately ran it aground on a reef in Haiti in 1885 as part of an insurance fraud scheme. He was charged but died before his trial concluded. It was an ignominious end for a ship with such a legendary history. So, what do you think happened? Was it the threat of an explosion, a freak natural event, or something else entirely? The silence of the Mary Celeste is what makes its story so powerful. It's a ship that carries not a cargo of alcohol, but a cargo of questions. It's a stark reminder of the power and mystery of the sea, and of how quickly the ordinary can become the inexplicable. The ship's log ends abruptly, and so does the story of its crew, leaving us with a haunting, unfinished tale. The enigma of the Mary Celeste isn't just a historical puzzle. It's a story that speaks to our deepest fears of the unknown and the unexplained. It's a ghost story where the ghost isn't a spirit, but the ship itself, silent, empty, and forever sailing through the annals of maritime lore. Thanks for joining me on this journey into one of history's greatest unsolved mysteries. If you have your own theory about the Mary Celeste, I'd love to read it in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into fascinating stories from the past. Until next time, stay curious.